Hi, word nerds. So it is our first recorded sentence surgeon of the year. And for those of you that are just getting started with sentence surgeons with me, as a reminder, the reason we call it sentence surgeons is because surgeons cut up people or animals that need some help. And in these sentences, they don't necessarily need help, but we are going to cut them up, and we're cutting them up into parts. We're cutting it up into the parts of speech, specifically speaking. So anytime we're trying to decide the part of speech of a particular word, we have to think about the purpose. What is the word doing? Why is it in this sentence? And if we can figure out the purpose, and we've memorized the purposes for the parts of speech, we can figure out usually pretty easily what part of speech it should be, although it can be a little tricky sometimes. It's like a little puzzle. So every time we do a sentence surgeon, we're going to read through it first, and this is from the book Little Red Writing this week, and I picked a very short sentence intentionally. It says, "Little Red squeezed the bottle." Little Red squeezed the bottle. Now, you can see that there's some other boxes at the bottom. Some of these, you're just going to be writing them down for a while. You're not necessarily going to understand what some of these things mean. It's going to take me some time to explain all the pieces. And the more you do these the way that you're supposed to, and the more you listen to the videos and you use your resources and do the activities throughout the year, it'll get easier and easier and easier to recognize what I'm going to label things before I even do it. So the first thing we can always do is we can identify the type of sentence. Now, this is part of our ELA stations this week, where you guys are going to read through a poster, there's a video, and then there's an activity where you sort some shirts into different categories based on what type of sentence it should be. But in our different types of sentences, there's 4 kinds that you'll see in the activity later. There's a declarative, where it's just something fairly boring that's just being stated out loud. Declared. So it's called a declarative sentence. There's also interrogative, which I think the video pronounces it a little differently. I think they called it interrogative, but I've always said interrogative. But that would be a question. Like, you can think of a detective or a police officer interrogating a suspect. That means they ask them lots of questions trying to figure out who did it. It could also be a command, where somebody's telling somebody to do something. That could be with an exclamation point where it's being yelled, or it could even be with a period, like declarative, where it's just stated. Sometimes it could even sound kind of polite, where it sounds like a request more than a command. And then the last type is exclamatory, where you exclaim something out loud. You use an exclamation point. So let's look at the punctuation right here. We have a period. So that means it's either going to be declarative, where it's just a basic sentence saying something normal, or it's going to be commanding somebody to do something. Let's read it. Little Red squeezed the bottle. Well, it doesn't tell her she has to. It doesn't tell anybody they have to do anything. So we're going to call this sentence declarative. And that's DECLARATIVE. Declarative. Sentence structure. For a while, I'll probably mostly pick simple sentences because we haven't talked about what these things mean. But there's 3 different words. It could be simple, complex, or compound. But for now, we're just going to put simple. I'm not going to get too deep into that because most of you that are 3rd graders or new to IMA may not really know what that is yet. And we'll do these later. We'll do that after we figure out our parts of speech. So if I'm looking at this, Little Red. So normally we think of little as being a describing word, but in this case, Little Red altogether, that's being used as the name of a character. It's a very specific name for a character, actually. And a character is always going to be considered a noun. But since this is their special name, it's all capitalized, that's going to be something called a proper noun. So not even just a noun, it's going to be a proper noun. And so we're going to combine these together because Little Red is her name. It's not just red, it's not just little, it's Little Red. So that is a proper noun. Squeezed. Squeezed is an action. And the word that means something is an action is a verb. And there's different different ways that we can think of our verbs. We could think of it as being past tense, present tense, or future tense. But for right now, we're going to say it's just a verb. If you think you've got an idea whether or not it's past, future, or present, I would like you to write that on a sticky note. Write down which tense you think this verb might be. If you think you know, put your name on it and then put it in the ELA bin. So hopefully you're listening to the video, and anyone who turns in a sticky note and has it right might get a special little surprise. All right, and then it says the bottle. Well, a bottle is a thing, so that's also a noun. A noun is a person, place, or a thing. That just leaves the word the that doesn't have a category right now. Well, it's not a describing word, so it's not going to be an adjective. The three most normal kinds of parts of speech are noun, verb, and an adjective. So if it's not describing, it's definitely not going to be an adverb either. So the is actually something that's considered an article. ARTICLE, an article. So there are three words, and actually if you look at the posters that are above the book bin cubbies, there are some posters, the one that says article, you can see that the only three words that can be an article are a, an, or the. A, an, or the. So hopefully you've written down all of these things on your piece of paper. So you have 4 words that you've, well, I guess it's a little more than 4 words, but 4 parts of speech that you've written down, and then a little note right here about what articles are. And declarative and simple, you should have all of these things written down. So now we're thinking about our subject and our predicate. So if you look right here, I know this camera is way far back, and I'm afraid to zoom it in too much because I do not want it to get super blurry all of a sudden. But if you look at yours really carefully on your piece of paper in front of you, it says the main noun or pronoun in a sentence. Noun or pronoun in a sentence. Well, we have 2 nouns. We have Little Red and we have bottle. Which one's the one doing the action? Is the bottle doing the action? Did the bottle squeezed Little Red? Or did Little Red squeezed the bottle? It's Little Red. Little Red is the one doing the action. So she's going to be our subject. All right, and then the predicate says the complete verb within the complete predicate. Well, basically, we're usually talking about the main action that the subject does. So what did Little Red do? Little Red squeezed. Little Red squeezed. All right, so that should be it. You should have everything on it. If you guys notice, I did write the wrong word up top. I wrote ELA stations. It should say ELA binder is what that should say, BINDER. So that binder that has your number on it, that's at the bottom of the book bin shelf, is where this should go. This should go behind the sleeve that says Sentence Surgeons. So you just pop them open. There's plenty of 4th graders that did this 1,000 times last year. So if you're a 3rd grader or a new 4th grader and you don't know how to put this in your binder and you don't know where it goes, please feel free to ask for help from somebody. But you can see that it has these holes in it, and that's where you're supposed to put it. You're supposed to put it in the rings in your binder. All right, thanks guys.